Hi everyone, it's Christina and Ellie. We have set up a little project for you guys today. It's actually a great day for practicing your photography inside because it snowed yesterday.
Yes, so it's very bright with the sun reflecting off the snow.
Which is nice. If you guys remember, we did a video about you had a question about good days to take pictures or what days, what kind of light is best to take pictures in, and the snow is wonderful because it makes everything kind of reflect off. If you can tell how white it is outside our window, all of that light is coming inside, and this room is usually pretty dark.
Yes.
But today, it's very bright. So we're going to use that to our advantage. And I just uploaded a video on Aperture yesterday or 2 days ago. And this will kind of show you what happens when your aperture changes. So we have one nutcracker set up over here, maybe about 8 or 10 inches back. We've got
number two
in the middle. And again, like 8 inches, maybe like 6, 7 inches back. It doesn't matter, just as long as you have them staggered.
Number 3.
We've got another nutcracker. And what we're going to do, we're going to focus on this guy in the front, so you can kind of see how changing your aperture changes the focus on these two, and also what it does to the lights in the tree. It actually makes a really pretty, it's called bokeh. The lights get kind of like big and creamy looking with the wider aperture, but you'll see that only he will be in focus. These two won't. But as we narrow our aperture, go to a bigger number, he'll stay in focus. These two will start to come in focus, and you'll have to watch the tree to see what happens with the lights. So anyway, that'll be a fun experiment, and it's something simple you can set up at home, especially if you've got a snow day. Like we do today. It's the light is just great for testing things out and playing at home. All right, good luck. We hope you enjoy. We'll post our results. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we figured the best way to show you what this was looking like and what we were getting at with our aperture experiment was to do a screen sharing of the pictures that we took. So this first picture was taken at aperture 1.8, which is a very, very wide aperture. If you remember what we were talking about in our last video, the aperture is the size of basically the hole that's left inside your lens once you set it. So that the bigger the hole, the more light is going to come into your camera, but the less you have in focus. So that, because we focused on the Rat King here, he is very sharp, and you can see all the texture here. You can even see all the little stitching on this ribbon over here, and we're going to remember that because we'll take a look at it again later in another example. But these two nutcrackers back here, especially this one, you cannot even tell. It's just a big blur. You're not even sure that that's a nutcracker back there too. But the lights on the tree are so pretty. That's the bokeh I was talking about. And this it makes like a really pretty kind of creamy, blurry background while keeping one subject very much in focus. So that's aperture 1.8. Our next picture was taken at f4, aperture 4.0. So a lot of lenses start around maybe like 3.2, 3.5, or 4. So this may be your starting point. And you can still see I focused on him. He is very much in focus still. She is a little bit more in focus than the last one was. Like you can start making out her wand there. Let's see, in this one you couldn't really tell. It sort of blurs into her coat and a little bit into her face. But, nope, there we go. Over here you can tell, you can sort of see the shape starting to come out of her magic wand. And you can start to tell that this is a nutcracker in the back, and she's actually holding a little nutcracker. And the lights still kind of have a little bit of that creamy look where they get blurred out. And just really pretty in the background. I like that look. Then we went to aperture was this? F16. So that's a pretty big jump from F4 to F16. You can maybe try something like F8 in between. But we kept our focus on him. He is still very sharp. She is much more sharp. Now we can tell, we can even see the separation between her wand and her cape, I guess, that she's wearing. And she's more in focus too. We can even see that her hair is a little messed up, and you can start to make out some of the lace and details on her dress. Still not the sharpest image because we had to bring our ISO way up, which is a different setting we'll talk about, because when you close down your aperture, so f16 is pretty closed down. That's leaving a tiny little hole for light to make its way to the back of your camera. So it makes everything sharper, but you need to compensate because you're not getting as much light in. So the tree is really sharp, and even you can see the individual lights on the tree. So that is a very different look. While we have, while we have all three nutcrackers more in focus, we kind of lose that pretty creamy, dreamy sort of background that you get with the wider apertures. So let me see. I wanted to take a look at, that's what I did. We did end up focusing on her in the middle too, so you can take a look. This was taken at f2. So she is very much in focus again. Everything else is blurry because your focus kind of goes side to side. If you imagine if all the nutcrackers were lined up against a wall and all of their noses were touching that same wall, they would all be in focus. But because we have them staggered sort of diagonally, the ones in front and in back are out of focus because they're not on the same plane. It's called a focal plane. So because we're at a super wide aperture, if something was in line with her side to side, they would be in focus too. But because he's in front and she's in the back and the tree's in the back, they are out of focus. So if we look at our Nutcracker King here, or the Rat King, I think this is the Rat King, that all that nice kind of stitching work on the ribbon we were talking about, and the texture in his robe and his beard, that's all gone. We can't see it. With her, you can still tell there's some details on her dress and all of that. But if we go to our next example, which was at F4, again, not a huge jump, but it's enough to kind of point out the difference. So when you're focusing on something, what is behind is going to come into focus a little bit more or first than what is in front. The focus kind of drops off on things in front more. So over here still you can't really tell there is that stitching, and this is at F4 again. The stitching in his ribbon and all the texture, it's kind of like a blur. You can tell who he is and what he is, but all of the details are sort of blurred out, whereas with her, they're pretty much an equal distance away from each other, but she's more in focus. We can see more of the beading and sort of lace details on her dress. We can tell she's holding a nutcracker. Her face is a little bit more in focus. It's still not great because it's still kind of a wide aperture, but if you ask me, her eyes and everything are more in focus than his eyes. They kind of look like, I don't know, just like blurry little dots. And of course, our Snow Queen here is totally in focus. And just to show you a different angle, because I realized when we did the video, we showed you kind of the front view of how they were staggered, but we didn't show you the side view. So we have one in front, one in the middle, and one in back, and they're going diagonally. See how he's towards the front of the table? She's kind of in the middle, and she's towards the back as we look at it. They're going diagonally, so we can make sure to pick one to focus on and kind of see what happens with those different planes. And if you wanted to, you could even line something up. Like maybe we could put a small doll or action figure or something next to her so that you could see how staying in the same plane, if you would want it in front of this nutcracker in the pink. So in front of her, but next to the one in the white, so that you could kind of see, if you focus on her, for instance, and change your aperture, how whoever is directly next to her should still stay in focus. Anyway, this should be an easy, a very easy thing to set up, especially if you've got holiday lights. It makes a really pretty background, and it's kind of fun to see how they change based on how your aperture changes. So we just wanted to give you guys some examples based on what we talked about the other day, and hopefully you can have fun doing something like this at home too. All right, if you like our videos, give us a like, please, and follow on Facebook and Instagram to find out when more are posted. Thanks. Bye-bye.